Hey guys, I got a really interesting game to show you today where we're going to be talking about what do you want to look for when you're attacking your opponent's king, specifically when the king is misplaced. So when your opponent's king is not behind the pawns and well defended, when it's kind of out in the open where it shouldn't be, how do you proceed and what should you be thinking about? That's what we're going to talk about. This game had a very interesting position and I'm going to show it to you right now. All right, so here we go. And of course, it was a bullet game, so don't worry too much about the opening. People play all kinds of weird stuff in bullet in the opening, and there were some mistakes made, but we're going to get past the opening. I was trying to just develop my pieces. Opponents kind of doing the same thing. I castle, they castle. Okay, and here I missed this, right? My knight is being attacked. Completely didn't see that, at least not until after I moved. And then my opponent apparently didn't see it either, played rook e1. So, okay. And then I'm like, oh, my knight's hanging. Let me save that. So knight c6. And now I decided at this point in the game, I want to try to attack white's king. So white is clearly expanding on the queen side. Doesn't really look like there's much going on for me over there. And I have this half open file for my rook, which can be involved in the attack. So it makes sense to attack on the king side and kind of just ignore the queen side for now. So because of that, I said, let's go ahead and relocate this knight around to here. And, you know, d4 is a nice sort of hole because there's no pawns controlling it, but white has a lot of pieces. And so I am actually just losing a pawn if I try to move there. So that's why I decided let's go to f4 via this route with the knight. Okay, so knight e8, c1, here we go, knight to e6. And I played knight to f4. So I got the knight where I wanted it. I'm also attacking the bishop, which is nice because I'd like to trade it. And then I most likely, depending on how white takes, not most likely, I am going to have a pin on this knight. And then I just move this and my rook's involved. And it looked pretty good. So that's what I was trying to do. Opponent played here, didn't want to allow me to trade that. They want the bishop to stay there to defend the knight. Because if I were to take now, for example, the bishop can recapture. And, you know, I'm still going to get a nice attack. But it seems like white has better chances to defend that way. So that's why white wanted to kind of keep on the board. So I played knight g5, and now really all the pieces are starting to come together. We get this pretty nice looking attack, right? I've opened up my rook, and all the minor pieces are here, and some of white's pieces are kind of like, I'm not really sure what they're doing over there. So it's looking pretty good. And now my opponent makes a mistake, pretty big mistake. And this is a good moment if you guys would like to pause. What do you think I played here and why? There's a little tactic available. And if you had a chance to look at that, the move is knight g to h3 check. And the way that I came up with this idea was that I noticed that the knight was undefended. And I'm like, well, it's in line with my queen. It's undefended. So can I move my knight somewhere and then take the knight? And sure enough, I can. This is with check. And so, of course, checks are going to be forcing white to do something. The other part of this puzzle is that when white played here, they were also attacking my bishop, which is undefended as well. But the nice thing is after I throw in my check, bring my queen over, then my queen's going to defend my bishop, and I'm going to be okay. And of course, if they take my knight, which is what I was expecting, I'm going to recapture with this knight, and again with check, right? So that's fine. At the end of the day, I'm actually just going to win a pawn, because I'm going to get these pieces, and I'm just going to lose one of my knights, right? So that's the move. That's what I played. We traded it, and then I took the knight. Okay, so here we go. You can really see now white's king is starting to be exposed, and let's go a few more moves forward. f3 was played. I guess here's a good learning opportunity as well. So what do you think I played here? Some of you who have followed some of my games probably can figure this out, but go ahead and think through what did I play here. And if you had a chance to look at that, I actually did sacrifice some pieces here. So I sacrificed my bishop and then sacrificed my rook. And the point is I wanted to just open up the king and then get this rook involved and see if there was some sort of a checkmate or something. I obviously didn't see all the way through the end of the game. I was just going with my instinct. Now, the computer doesn't like this. The computer says a better move would have been rook e6, which is kind of the same idea, trying to activate this rook that's out of the game. And that actually does make a lot of sense after Stockfish tells me that's the move. I was afraid that I was just going to lose my bishop, and then let's see what it's... Oh, it's telling me rook f2, of course. So, you know, that's a good little tactic to be aware of. The fork... It's well defended, so I can definitely play there. So white actually can't take my bishop, and so because of that, it makes sense to bring this rook up and over. So I learned something there. But at the time, it's a bullet game. I'm like, let's just go ahead and sacrifice some stuff. And I played rook f8 check. Okay, so this is the moment in the game where I really wanted to focus. So I obviously sacrificed the pieces. White's king is no longer defended, right, behind the pawns where it should be. It's sitting over here on e3. And this is a type of position I've seen quite a bit in a lot of lower rated player games. And I want to talk through a little bit about how should you go about thinking about a position like this when your opponent's king is misplaced. And it could be because you sacrificed some pieces, like in this example. It could be they just made some poor choices and they didn't castle, and maybe they created some weaknesses and their king ended up getting chased around, and you find yourself in a position like this. What should you be thinking about first? So the order that I like to think about this, number one, of course, you want to look for checkmates. Like, do you have any just checkmates right away? So queen takes e4 is almost checkmate. King can't move, right? The problem is I have nothing defending my queen. I'm just losing my queen. So it doesn't quite work, but that's definitely a move that I'm thinking about. And that might make me think of playing knight here or knight here, because then my knight could assist me in potentially checkmating the king, right? So that's kind of one train of thought. I'm going to check this move. Is this checkmate? No, it looks like White's going to escape. And that's kind of the second thing. So if you don't have any immediate checkmates, you want to be asking yourself the follow-up question: where is the king most likely to escape at, right? And so we can see here, I've got this pretty much shut down, which means most likely White's king is either going to go like this or like this, or maybe even to c3. So there's kind of, I guess you could say, 3 different routes that the king could take to get away. And I need to be thinking through, can I prevent that? Or if I can't, what am I going to do in that case? And it's a little bit of an urgent situation, especially when you sacrifice pieces, because if White is able to, let's just say, run all the way over here, remember, I'm down a rook, right? I have a queen, a rook, and a knight, and White has a queen, a rook, a bishop, and an extra rook. So I'm going to be completely losing if that happens. So I have to do something relatively quickly. Now, in the game, I thought to myself that the best way to do this was by playing knight to f2. This turns out to be the wrong move, which we'll come back to in just a second. But the reason I played knight f2 was because I said, well, White would probably like to go here, right? And I just stopped that. The pawn is stopping here, which means there's only one place for the king to run, here. And if they tried to do that, well, I noticed that I was going to have queen g4 check. And it looks like I'm getting mate, because if the king comes up, then I have mate. Remember that mate I looked at earlier is there. And so the king has to go here, which is in line with my rook. I've cut it off from running this way. It looks terrible, right? So that's all I really thought about. That's why I played knight to f2. Now, it turns out that White has this nice little move, queen to d5 check, which I did miss. And not only is it check, so it forces me to waste a move, but the more important factor is it opens up the d2 square, and now the king can run to an extra place that I didn't consider, right? And so you can see now it's really getting away, and I'm still going to be down that rook, and I don't really have a good follow-up here. I can throw in this check. It doesn't really do anything. The king still is going to run, right? I have nothing. So let's go back. That's what I missed, queen d5. Knight f2 was a good idea, though. If that move wasn't there, I think White would be in trouble because of what I said. I kind of shut down the escape route. And so even though it didn't work in this case, I think this is a good habit to get into. When you're trying to checkmate a king like this, you want to always ask yourself, okay, where's the escape route that the king is most likely to go, and can I shut that down? Now, with that in mind, let's talk about the move that Stockfish said was the best, which I missed. If you guys want to pause, try to figure it out, feel free to do that. What do you think Stockfish recommended here? It's a very good move. I just didn't consider it. All right, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is rook to f2. And this kind of does 2 things. So number one, it brings this rook, which, I mean, I would say the rook's in a good position already, right? This is doing a nice job, but it puts it in at an even better square. Right now, not only are we controlling this file, we're also controlling this rank, right? So you want to be looking for opportunities to take one of your pieces that maybe isn't perfect, and can you put it on an even better square? That's what the computer is saying here. It's also with tempo on the queen. And there's kind of a more subtle point here, but the reason that Stockfish is really liking this move is because it's actually creating a mating net. And so what Stockfish is doing is shutting down this whole rank from the king. The pawns are kind of blocking it from going this way. And so I think you can probably see now, if we're able to get our queen somewhere on this rank, we've got checkmate. Okay, so for example, let's just say White plays a move like this: queen h6 check, king d3, and after knight f4 check, this is pretty amazing. If the king runs here, we can take the rook and we now pin the queen, okay? And if the king tries to run over here, we've got queen h, I thought it was queen h3 check. There's actually a better, oh, knight takes e2 is even better. But you can see how queen h3 check, the king has, you know, really nowhere to go. Knight takes e2 is even better, winning both of the rooks back. Rook f2, really nice idea. Like I said, cutting off the king this way, attacking the queen. And let's just look at another example. If the queen, let's say, tries to move to d1, you've got queen h6 check, king d3, knight f4 check. And notice how the rook is completely cutting this off. And after the king tries to run here, queen h3 check. And you can see how white can't get out of this mating net. They can delay it by a couple moves by sacrificing some pieces, but you just take, you take, and it's over. So really nice idea. Like I said, I missed that in the game. Of course, it was a bullet game. Probably could have come up with that in a longer game, but it's a good idea to keep in mind. Getting those pieces that are, even if they're good, can you get them even better? And there's lots of different ways to prevent the king from escaping. I was just thinking about using the knight to stop this. Computer was saying, well, we'll let him go here, but we'll just cut off this whole rank. And then, you know, eventually we'll get our queen here. So really nice idea. I just wanted to kind of point that out, talk through some of the things that you want to be thinking through when you get in positions like this where your opponent's king is exposed. And by the way, if you want to see how the game ended, I played knight f2. My opponent actually didn't see queen d5 check. I mean, they only had a few seconds. They played queen e2, and I just simply played queen f4 checkmate. So I prevented the king from escaping here. This was kind of the other place it wanted to go, but queen f4 stops that, and we just get this nice checkmate. So it worked out for me, but best move actually was rook f2, like we mentioned. Anyway, hope you guys learned something from that, and I'll see you next time.